was just yesterday, right? It was just yesterday when we reported,
It was just
the
yesterday.
day before, or sometime like this week, OnlyFans, they said that they were cutting out porn from their website, sexually explicit content, and there was tremendous backlash. Everyone was saying that they were turning their backs on all of the people who built up the OnlyFans platform, and we were looking at what role banks and payment processors had in all of this decision-making. Now they've announced that it will no longer ban sexually explicit content. They have rolled that back in probably response to all of the backlash that they've faced. And they've also talked, they've gone into detail about their banking relationships and how difficult it is for them, how accounts just keep getting shut down. And none of this is new, right? So in last year, 2020, we started to hear reports about OnlyFans starting to kick off content creators from their platform, and people were wondering whether the banks had a role in that as well. So this has been going for a while. Now, you know, they've said it came to a head, and we can mind the pun, and they can no longer, you know, support this content at all because all their banking relationships are going to go down the tube. And now they've turned around and said, no, actually, we're going to keep fighting. Like, it seems like it's an ongoing battle for them, and it's a difficult battle for them to fight. So I'm wondering how this is all going to end up. But Ben, I'm going to throw to you for this to dive into some of the details of what they announced.
Yeah, I think this is interesting on a few different levels. You know, I think it's really interesting to see a platform respond this quickly to like public criticism. I think it also speaks to the fact that, you know, since Fosta Sesta, like sex workers have been really vocal and organized, and, you know, it's not sort of shrouded in this like, you know, taboo, like, oh no, like we can't talk about this secrecy, and is really open lines of communication, particularly in the media. And I think that's important to recognize people, you know, as they are, and not just kind of like as, you know, the past might think of them or something along those lines. At the same level, I think it's really interesting that BNY Mellon is involved in this. And that's sort of, you know, OnlyFans came out and was like naming names like JP Morgan Chase, BNY Mellon, in terms of rejecting all the transactions associated with their site in a lot of different ways. And I thought that was really interesting, not least of which because we were just talking about BNY Mellon and being early in on crypto custodying, right? And I think it does point at the sort of inherent, when a lot of banks and even, you know, banks are getting on board with crypto and starting to offer it as an offering, there's not a commitment to decentralization, right? Like the ethos and Zach made of the philosophies around Bitcoin and what technology is used for that you were talking about. I think this really shows that, you know, people are here to make money and they're not really interested in the underlying aspects and sort of the commitment to peer-to-peer networks or decentralization. So that was my big takeaway here. It's like, on the one hand, BNY Mellon is like, yeah, we're going to custody crypto, like sweet. And then on the other hand, they're like, but we're definitely going to reject all these transactions from OnlyFans. So that was my initial takeaway here. But again, applaud OnlyFans for like listening to the public and, you know, again, keep serving pancakes at IHOP as we talked about yesterday.
I wonder.
Go ahead, Jen.
Go for it. Okay, I was quickly just going to say, I wonder what was going on behind the scenes, because it took this public backlash for them to make a very quick decision. And they say they have a new financial situation, although we don't know what that is yet. And so I just wonder what the discussions were leading up to this point. They were going to change their business model completely and offer like cooking content and content that people don't go to OnlyFans for. So it's just very curious that they've made all these very strange business decisions. And now, because of the very obvious public backlash, like, oh, we actually have a solution. So I'm curious to see what that solution is.
Yeah, and I would also add that, because I had the same thoughts, Jen, and I wonder whether some of this is publicity to get it out to the public, that a lot of it's not their doing, you know, because they have been going through this for many, many months, like almost a year of people being, you know, having to get kicked off the platform, you know, increasing backlash against them. I wonder whether this is their way of making a big splash and saying, hey, it's the banks, you know, we have to ban it, but our hands are tied. And then they can turn around and say, okay, we're not banning it, but just so you know, this is the situation, just so people know where to focus their ire. But I would mention back on your comment, Ben, about BNY Mellon getting involved with crypto. Like we talked about on the show, how the next step for them is obviously crypto. It's uncensorable money. You don't need to appease middlemen and payment processors in order to allow your consumers to accept cryptocurrency. And so that seems like the next step. But traditionally, when companies have started to add crypto options, then the banks have a reason to just deplatform those companies because they're involved with crypto, right? But we're in a very different situation now. I think that OnlyFans could very easily add crypto options, like increasing crypto options on their platform, make it an integral part. And banks like BNY Mellon can't really, push back against that because, as you said, they're involved with crypto themselves. Now that banks are all getting involved with them themselves, they don't really have, 2 feet to stand on if they start pushing back against organizations that incorporate cryptocurrency into their business model, which is kind
Are you
of
telling me banks can't have it both ways? What?
I was going to say, do you think that'll stop them?
Well, true that, you can't launder money, but we definitely can. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens there, but it just does
Don't
seem
bring Deutsche
like,
Bank into this.
It's going to be a much harder case for them to make. But Zach, I'll throw back to you.
So much shade.
What if this is the catalyst for social tokens? What if this drives people to new solutions? I don't think it necessarily will, but hey, it might.